There is a sound an airplane makes when it loses cabin pressure. It's not a scream, not a bang. It's a deep groaning sigh, the sound of a giant beast letting go of its last breath. And then the masks drop. You know the drill. You've heard it 100 times. Put your own mask on first before assisting others. For most of my life, I thought that was the most selfish piece of advice I had ever heard. A moral failure in a single sentence. Of course you help the child next to you, the elderly person, the person struggling. You are a good person. You help. That was my operating system. That was the code I wrote for my soul. Help first, self last. Be affordable. Be accessible. Be the easy, yes. I built my entire life on the foundation of that single, catastrophic misunderstanding. I thought putting my own mask on first was about selfishness. I never realized it was about survival. That the cheap price of being the ever-available, ever-accommodating person was costing me the very oxygen in my lungs. And I was slowly, and without even noticing the change in the light, suffocating. It starts small, doesn't it? It starts with a friend, a good friend, or so you think. The calls that only ever come at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. The text messages that are never a "how are you," but always a "you won't believe what happened to me." And you answer. You always answer. You pour a glass of water, and you sit in the dark, and you listen for an hour as they unravel their latest crisis. You offer advice, you soothe, you validate. And when you hang up, there's a silence that feels heavier than before. A faint metallic taste of being used, but you brush it off. You are a good friend. This is what good friends do. You've just sold an hour of your peace for the cheap price of feeling needed. You don't see the invoice piling up. You just feel tired. Then it's a client. You have a rate. It's a fair rate, a number you calculated after much anxiety. A number that reflects your skill, your time, your expertise. They come to you, full of enthusiasm. They love your work. You're perfect for this. But then, the inevitable lean in, the conspiratorial whisper. Look, the budget is a little tight. Can you just do it for this? And they name a number that is an insult wrapped in a question. Your stomach clenches. But your mouth, trained in politeness, trained in not making a scene, says, well, I suppose just this once. You have just given a discount on your soul. You have just told the universe, and more importantly, told yourself, that your skill, the late nights you spend honing your craft, the very essence of your professional value, is negotiable. It's on sale, and the world is a giant clearance rack for things that are cheap. The excuses we tell ourselves are beautiful, intricate tapestries. We call it kindness. We call it flexibility. We call it being a team player. We call it humility, as if charging what we are worth is an act of arrogance. We say, it's good exposure. A phrase that should be illegal. The spiritual equivalent of a company paying you in hashtags. We say, they'll remember this later, or it's just for now. We are master storytellers, weaving narratives of temporary sacrifice for a future payoff that never, ever arrives. Because the problem with selling yourself at a discount is that you attract bargain hunters. And bargain hunters are not loyal. They are not building anything with you. They are passing through, looking for a deal. And the moment they see something cheaper, something shinier, a lower price tag on someone else's soul, they are gone. You are left alone, holding the empty bag of your own compromise, wondering why you feel so hollow. I remember the moment the cost became clear to me. It wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was a quiet, cold Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by the physical clutter of a life built on cheap prices. There was a half-finished project for a client who was perpetually late on paying my already discounted fee. There was my phone, buzzing with a text from a number I knew belonged to a friend who only ever materialized during a personal emergency. There was a knot in my shoulder that had taken up permanent residence, and there was a feeling like I had been running a marathon for years, but I was on one of those gym treadmills that goes nowhere, and someone else was controlling the speed, and they kept turning it up, and I was drenched in sweat, and my lungs were burning, but I wasn't a single step closer to any destination. I was just exhausted. I was a resource to be extracted, a well everyone could drop their bucket into, but no one ever thought to refill. That's when I saw it. The pattern. It was everywhere. The cheap price was a filter. It filtered out the good, respectful, high-value people, and it filtered in the energy vampires, the chaos agents, the perpetual takers. My cheap boundaries were an open invitation for people to come and dump their emotional trash in my front yard. My cheap time was a signal that my hours were a public park where anyone could loiter indefinitely. My cheap energy was a light in the fog, attracting every lost ship that needed to crash into something solid. I had made myself the cheapest, most accessible port in a storm, and I was being battered by every single vessel that couldn't be bothered to find a proper harbor. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. Let me say that again, because I had to write it on my bathroom mirror before I finally understood it. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. Every time you answer that 11 p.m. call, you are giving a masterclass in how to access you. Every time you lower your rate, you are writing the textbook on your own devaluation. Every time you accept the good exposure lie, you are building the cage you will eventually find yourself trapped inside. If you keep giving discounts on your value, don't be surprised when people start expecting clearance prices on your effort. They're not monsters. They're just students, and you are the teacher. A desperately underpaid teacher, working for a currency that is bankrupting your spirit. The people who are looking for cheap, they rarely care about quality. They don't want the depth of your work, the nuance of your thought, the unique fingerprint of your soul that you pour into what you do. They want the shortcut. They want the fast, the easy, the convenient. They want to consume your attention and move on. They are transactional in a world where you are trying to be relational. They are looking for a product, and you have mistakenly presented yourself as one, sitting on the shelf with a price tag that you yourself keep marking down. They don't want to build a cathedral with you. They just want a few bricks, and they want them for free, and they'll complain about the weight as you carry them over. So I decided to raise my price. It was the most terrifying thing I have ever done. Not just my monetary price, though that was part of it. I raised my life price. I started charging more effort to access my time, more respect to access my energy, more integrity to access my inner circle. I made it expensive to get a piece of me, not because I thought I was better than anyone, but because I finally understood I was worth more than I was getting. It was an act of survival, that final gasping reach for the oxygen mask that had been dangling in front of my face for years. The first thing I did was a culling. It was quiet. There were no announcements, no dramatic confrontations. I just stopped. I stopped answering the 11 p.m. calls. I let them go to voicemail. The world did not end. I wrote a new email to that client and every client after, stating my rates clearly, firmly, with no apologies attached. I lost some of them. They vanished like ghosts at sunrise, and it hurt financially for a moment. It felt like failure, but the silence they left behind was not empty. It was fertile. It was space. It was room to breathe. I started to say, no. It felt like a foreign language on my tongue at first. No, I can't take on that project. No, I'm not available that day. No, that doesn't work for me. Every no was a brick in a new boundary wall, not to keep people out, but to define the sacred space within which I could finally live. And a strange thing began to happen. The people who complained, the ones who got angry, the ones who called me selfish or difficult or changed, they faded away. They were never my customers. They were never my friends. They were my distractions, cleverly disguised as opportunities. They were the weeds that had been choking the garden, and when I stopped watering them, they simply withered. And then, an even stranger thing happened. The right people began to appear. Or perhaps they had been there all along. But I was too busy putting out fires for the arsonists to notice the people quietly building a shelter for me. New clients emerged who didn't flinch at my rates, who said, "Yes, that's fair," and who paid on time, and who respected my expertise. Friendships deepened, real ones built on mutual exchange, on laughter that wasn't a prelude to a request, on silence that was comfortable, not charged with unspoken need. There was loyalty. There was trust. There was peace. They paid my price, not always in money, but in the richer currencies of respect and reciprocity. They valued what was behind the wall, and they never asked for a discount to get in. This is the rebirth. It's not a loud, glorious phoenix rising from the ashes in a burst of flame. It's quieter than that. It's the slow, steady regrowth of a forest after a long, devastating fire. It's the first green shoots finding their way through the scorched earth. It's the return of birdsong to a silence that was once filled with the noise of other people's emergencies. The cost of that cheap life was a constant, draining chaos. The price of this new one is vigilance, the constant, gentle maintenance of your own boundaries. But the reward is your soul. The reward is your energy. The reward is your life, finally, authentically your own. So if you are sitting on that cold floor, surrounded by the evidence of your own discounting, listening to the buzz of demands on a phone you're afraid to touch, I am here to tell you something. Reach up. The mask is right there. It has been there all along. Your hand might be trembling. That's okay. Grasp it. Pull it towards you. Secure it over your own nose and mouth first. Breathe. Feel that oxygen, sharp and clean and life-giving. Fill your lungs. It might feel selfish. It will feel terrifying. The old voices in your head, the ones trained in your own devaluation, will scream that you are doing it wrong. Ignore them. Breathe. This is your one change. The change from being a cheap resource to being a priceless asset. Stop giving discounts on your soul. The ones who are meant for you, the clients, the collaborators, the friends, the partners, they will never ask for one. They will see your value, they will respect your price, and they will be grateful to pay it. They were never looking for a bargain. They were looking for you. And now, finally, you are there to be found. Just keep going. One breath at a time. One no at a time. One reaffirmation of your own worth at a time. The path is built by walking it, and every step you take away from that cheap price is a step towards a life that is not costly in its energy, but rich in its peace. The world will adjust, or it won't. But you will finally be living, and that is the only price that was ever worth paying.